In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We will start again from the beginning of the novel in order to make or to give the chance to the students to listen and to read the story totally, because I think it's better to listen to the recording and read the text during the lectures to solve the problem of the students being not able to read alone at home. Okay, we will start from the beginning. I want you to listen and follow up with the text. When we go into an important quotation, we will stop. We will try to comment on it. Then we will continue. Let's start.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox. This reading by Aaron Decker. Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. Part the first, at Mary Green. Yea, many there be that have run out of their wits for women, and become servants for their sakes. Many also have perished, have erred, and sinned for women. O ye men, how can it be that women should be strong, seeing they do thus? Esdras.
This is an introduction. This is a quotation by Esdras. It's a kind of wisdom. As a kind of introduction, it refers that we have a problem that will bring to the downfall of the hero because of a woman. Let's continue.
Chapter 1. The schoolmaster was leaving the village, and everybody seemed sorry. The miller at Crescombe lent him the small white tilted cart and horse to carry his goods to the city of his destination, about 20 miles off, such a vehicle proving of quite sufficient size for the departing teacher's effects.
We commented on this quotation in the first lecture, or in the previous lecture. We talked that here, who is the speaker? The speaker is the author. Who is the addressee? The addressee is the reader. What is the occasion? It is at Mary Green, when the schoolmaster or the teacher of the school in that village was leaving the village. Okay, what is the importance of this quotation? We have many importance. Number one, it's considered as an introduction to the plot. We have reference to the idea of the need for education, because we will see that the schoolmaster is leaving the village because he wants to continue his education at Christ Minister. Let's go on.
The schoolhouse had been partly furnished by the managers, and the only cumbersome article possessed by the master, in addition to the packing case of books, was a cottage piano that he had bought at an auction during the year in which he thought of learning instrumental music. But the enthusiasm having waned, he had never acquired any skill in playing, and the purchased article had been a perpetual trouble to him ever since in moving house. The rector had gone away for the day, being a man who disliked the sight of changes. He did not mean to return till the evening, when the new school teacher would have arrived and settled in, and everything would be smooth again. The blacksmith, the farm bailiff, and the schoolmaster himself were standing in perplexed attitudes in the parlor before the instrument. The master had remarked that even if he got it into the cart, he should not know what to do with it on his arrival at Christminster, the city he was bound for, since he was only going into temporary lodgings just at first. A little boy of 11, who had been thoughtfully assisting in the packing, joined the group of men, and as they rubbed their chins, he spoke up, blushing at the sound of his own voice. "Aunt have got a great fuel house, and it could be put there, perhaps, till you found a place to settle in, sir. A good proper notion, said the blacksmith. It was decided that a deputation should wait on the boy's aunt, an old maiden resident, and ask her if she would house the piano till Mr. Phillotson should send for it. The smith and the bailiff started to see about the practicability of the suggested shelter, and the boy and the schoolmaster were left standing alone. Sorry I am going, Jude? Asked the latter kindly. Tears rose into the boy's eyes, for he was not among the regular day scholars who came unromantically close to the schoolmaster's life, but one who had attended the night school only during the present teacher's term of office. The regular scholars, if the truth must be told, stood at the present moment afar off, like certain historic disciples, indisposed to any enthusiastic volunteering of aid. The boy awkwardly opened the book he held in his hand, which Mr. Phillotson had bestowed on him as a parting gift, and admitted that he was sorry. So am I, said Mr. Phillotson. Why do you go, sir? Asked the boy. Ah, that would be a long story. You wouldn't understand my reasons, Jude. You will, perhaps, when you are older. I think I should now, sir. Well, don't speak of this everywhere. You know what a university is, and a university degree? It is the necessary hallmark of a man who wants to do anything in teaching. My scheme, or dream, is to be a university graduate, and then to be ordained. By going to live at Christminster, or near it, I shall be at headquarters, so to speak.
So, here, who is the speaker in this quotation? The speaker is the schoolmaster. Who is the addressee? The addressee is Jude. What is the occasion? The occasion at Mary Green, at the time of the schoolmaster leaving Mary Green toward Christminster. What is the idea here? The idea here, yearning for education, seeking for education. Okay? Till now we have a gloomy scene, or the scene is covered with gloom because it is the time of the schoolmaster to leave the village. Even the rector, it means the manager of the school, wasn't or doesn't want to attend the moment of the school or the teachers leaving for the school, because he doesn't like the farewell scenes, because he suffers every now and then, and he is a sympathetic person. Let's go on.
And if my scheme is practicable at all, I consider that being on the spot will afford me a better chance of carrying it out than I should have elsewhere. The smith and his companion returned. Old Miss Folly's fuel house was dry and eminently practicable, and she seemed willing to give the instrument standing room there. It was accordingly left in the school till the evening, when more hands would be available for removing it, and the schoolmaster gave a final glance round. The boy Jude assisted in loading some small articles, and at 9 o'clock Mr. Phillotson mounted beside his box of books and other impedimenta, and bade his friends good-bye. I shan't forget you, Jude, he said, smiling, as the cart moved on. Be a good boy, remember, and be kind to animals and birds, and read all you can. And if ever you come to Christminster, remember you hunt me out for old acquaintance' sake. The cart creaked across the green and disappeared round the corner by the rectory house. The boy returned to the draw well at the end of the greensward, where he had left his buckets when he went to help his patron and teacher in the loading. There was a quiver in his lip now, and after opening the well cover to begin lowering the bucket, he paused and leant with his forehead and arms against the framework, his face wearing the fixity of a thoughtful child who has felt the pricks of life somewhat before his time. The well into which he was looking was as ancient as the village itself, and from his present position appeared as a long circular perspective ending in a shining disk of quivering water at a distance of 100 feet down. There was a lining of green moss near the top, and nearer still, the hart's tongue fern. He said to himself in the melodramatic tones of a whimsical boy that the schoolmaster had drawn at that well scores of times on a morning like this, and would never draw there any more. I've seen him look down into it when he was tired with his drawing, just as I do now, and when he rested a bit before carrying the buckets home. But he was too clever to bide here any longer, a small, sleepy place like this. A tear rolled from his eye into the depths of the well. The morning was a little foggy, and the boy's breathing unfurled itself as a thicker fog upon the still and heavy air. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden outcry. "Bring on that water, will ye idle young harlequin?" It came from an old woman who had emerged from her door towards the garden gate of a green thatched cottage not far off. The boy quickly waved a signal of assent, drew the water with what was a great effort for one of his stature, landed, and emptied the big bucket into his own pair of smaller ones, and pausing a moment for breath, started with them across the patch of clammy greensward whereon the well stood, nearly in the center of the little village, or rather hamlet, of Marygreen. It was as old-fashioned as it was small, and it rested in the lap of an undulating upland adjoining the North Wessex Downs. Old as it was, however, the well shaft was probably the only relic of the local history that remained absolutely unchanged. Many of the thatched and dormered dwelling houses had been pulled down of late years, and many trees felled on the green. Above all, the original church, humpbacked, wood-turreted, and quaintly hipped, had been taken down, and either cracked up into heaps of road metal in the lane, or utilized as pigsty walls, garden seats, guard stones to fences, and rockeries in the flower beds of the neighborhood. In place of it, a tall new building of modern Gothic design, unfamiliar to English eyes, had been erected on a new piece of ground by a certain obliterator of historic records who had run down from London and back in a day. The site whereon so long had stood the ancient temple to the Christian divinities was not even recorded on the green and level grass plot that had immemorially been the churchyard, the obliterated graves being commemorated by 18-penny cast-iron crosses warranted to last 5 years. End of Part 1, Chapter 1.
Okay, this is the end of part 1. It describes Jude and his living, his life in Marygreen, and the living of the schoolmaster. And we have an introduction even for the character of Jude, who is 11 years old, and even to his aunt, Drusilla, we'll see. And the way they live, we will see that he is a child who has to work because of the poverty and the life hardship. Let's go to part 2.
Chapter 2. Slender as was Jude Folly's frame, he bore the 2 brimming house buckets of water to the cottage without resting. Over the door was a little rectangular piece of blue board, on which was painted in yellow letters, Drusilla Folly, Baker. Within the little lead panes of the window, this being one of the few old houses left, were 5 bottles of sweets and 3 buns on a plate of the willow pattern. While emptying the buckets at the back of the house, he could hear an animated conversation in progress within doors between his great aunt, the Drusilla of the signboard, and some other villagers. Having seen the schoolmaster depart, they were summing up particulars of the event and indulging in predictions of his future.
Okay, so when we see Drusilla Foley Baker, this is reference to what? Who can tell me? That his aunt Drusilla is a baker, okay, who buys sweets, not, let me say it, and those things. Who helps her? Jude Fowley. Okay. I want you to pay attention to the pronunciation of aunt, not aunt. What is the difference between aunt and aunt? When we say aunt, it means the sister of your father or mother, okay? Or the wife of your uncle. But when we say aunt, what is the meaning of aunt? It's a small creature, okay? So even if you heard it from the native speaker like this, aunt as an aunt, this is a mistake, okay? Let's go on.
And who's he? Asked one, comparatively a stranger, when the boy entered. William at Ascot, Mrs. Williams. He's my great-nephew, come since you was last this way. The old inhabitant who answered was a tall, gaunt woman, who spoke tragically on the most trivial subject, and gave a phrase of her conversation to each auditor in turn. He come from Mellstock down in South Wessex about a year ago. Worse luck for him, Belinda, turning to the right, where his father was living, and was took with the shakings for death, and died in 2 days, as you know, Caroline, turning to the left. It would have been a blessing if God Almighty had took thee too, with thy mother and father, poor useless boy. But I've got him here to stay with me, till I can see what's to be done with him, though I am obliged to let him earn any penny he can. Just now he's a scaring of birds for Father Troutham. It keeps him out of mischief. Why do you turn away, Jude? She continued, as the boy, feeling the impact of their glances like slaps upon his face, moved aside.
Okay, this is a description of chatting between his aunt Dorcella with her neighbors, talking about the story of Jude because Mrs. William asked, "Who is that boy?" She answered that he is my nephew. My nephew, either the son of my brother or the son of my sister. And she told that he is an orphan. She employed him with the farmer Trutham in order to scare bears and helps in the finances and supporting his living. Okay.
The local washerwoman replied that it was perhaps a very good plan of Miss or Mrs. Follies, as they called her indifferently, to have him with her, to keep ye company in your loneliness, fetch water, shut the winder shutters o' nights, and help in the bit of baking. Miss Folly doubted it. Why didn't ye get the schoolmaster to take ye to Christminster when, and make a scholar of ye? She continued in frowning pleasantry. I'm sure you couldn't have took a better one. The boy is crazy for books, that he is. It runs in our family, rather. His cousin Sue is just the same, so I've heard, but I have not seen the child for years, though she was born in this place, within these 4 walls, as it happened. My niece and her husband, after they were married, didn't get a house of their own for some year or more, and then they only had one till, well, I won't go into that. Jude, my child, don't you ever marry. 'Tisn't for the Follies to take that step any more. She, their only one, was like a child of my own, Belinda, till the split come. Ah, that a little maid should know such changes. Jude, finding the general attention again centering on himself, went out to the bakehouse where he ate the cake provided for his breakfast. The end of his spare time had now arrived, and emerging from the garden by getting over the hedge at the back, he pursued and pathed northward, till he came to a wide and lonely depression in the general level of the upland, which was sown as a cornfield. This vast concave was the scene of his labors for Mr. Troutham, the farmer, and he descended into the midst of it. The brown surface of the field went right up towards the sky all round, where it was lost by degrees in the midst that shut out the actual verge and accentuated the solitude. The only marks on the uniformity of the scene were a rick of last year's produce standing in the midst of the arable, the rooks that rose as his approach, and the path athwart the follow by which he had come, trodden now by he hardly knew whom, though once by many of his own dead family. How ugly it is here, he murmured. The fresh harrow lines seemed to stretch like the channelings in a piece of new corduroy, lending a meanly utilitarian air to the expanse, taking away its gradations, and depriving it of all history beyond that of the few recent months, though to every clod and stone there really attached associations enough and to spare, echoes of songs from ancient harvest days, of spoken words, and of sturdy deeds. Every inch of ground had been the site, first or last, of energy, gaiety, horseplay, bickerings, weariness. Groups of gleaners had squatted in the sun on every square yard. Love matches that had populated the adjoining hamlet had been made up there between reaping and carrying. Under the hedge which divided the field from a distant plantation, girls had given themselves to lovers who would not turn their heads to look at them by the next harvest. And in that ancient cornfield, many a man had made love promises to a woman at whose voice he had trembled by the next seed time after fulfilling them in the church adjoining. But this neither Jude nor the rooks around him considered. For them it was a lonely place, possessing, in the one view, only the quality of a work ground, and in the other, that of a granary good to feed in.
Okay, here is our reference that the way in the harvest time, the time of getting the harvest, we have many men and women, young men and young women, who have a relationship and gives promises to each other, and the end of this relationship in the church to fulfill their promises. Here we have what is called kind of foreshadowing. If you want to comment on this quotation, here the author, who is the speaker? The speaker is the author. Who is the addressee? The addressee is the reader. What is the occasion? When Jude was in the fields, mediating, thinking about the status and how people and how life is going on. Here we have some kind of technique of the plot, which is foreshadowing, and while describing the events and the life, we have passing of the time. Okay, some kind of the passage of the time. Okay, let's go on.
The boy stood under the rick before mentioned, and every few seconds used his clacker to rattle briskly. At each clack the rooks left off pecking, and rose, and went away on their leisurely wings, burnished like cassets of mail, afterwards wheeling back and regarding him warily, and descending to feed at a more respectful distance. He sounded the clacker till his arm ached, and at length his heart grew sympathetic with the bird's thwarted desires. They seemed, like himself, to be living in a world which did not want them. Why should he frighten them away? They took upon more and more the aspect of gentle friends and pensioners, the only friends he could claim as being in the least degree interested in him, for his aunt had often told him that she was not. He ceased his rattling, and they alighted anew. Poor little dears, said Judy Miller. You shall have some dinner, you shall. There's enough for us all. Farmer Troutham can afford to let you have some. Eat then, my dear little birdies, and make a good meal.
So, who is the speaker? The speaker is Jude Fowley. The addressee is the birds. The occasion when Jude Fowley was hired by Troutham to scare the birds. He thinks about the life and he feels sympathetic with the birds who suffer for a living, and he compare himself to those birds as if the world doesn't want them to live, and he allow them to eat. This is the idea of humanity. Here we have the theme of humanity.
They stayed and ate inky spots on the nut-brown soil, and Jude enjoyed their appetite. A magic thread of fellow feeling united his own life with theirs. Puny and sorry as those lives were, they much resembled his own. His clacker he had by this time thrown away from him, as being a mean and sordid instrument, offensive both to the birds and to himself as their friend. All at once, he became conscious of a smart blow upon his buttocks, followed by a loud clack which announced to his surprised senses that the clacker had been the instrument of offense used. The birds and Jude started up simultaneously, and the dazed eyes of the latter beheld the farmer in person, the great Troughton himself, his face glaring down upon Jude's cowering frame, the clacker swinging in his hand. So it's eat, my dear birdies, is it, young man? Eat, dear birdies, indeed. I'll tickle your breeches and see if you say eat, dear birdies, again in a hurry. And you've been idling at the schoolmaster's, too, instead of coming here, hadn't ye, eh? That's how you earn your 6 pence a day for keeping the rooks off my corn? Whilst saluting Jude's ears with this impassioned rhetoric, Troughton had seized his left hand with his own left, and swinging his slim frame round him at arm's length, again struck Jude on the hind parts with the flat side of Jude's own rattle, till the field echoed with the blows, which were delivered once or twice at each revolution. "Don'ee, sir, please don'ee," cried the whirling child, as helpless under the centrifugal tendency of his person as a hooked fish swinging to land, and beholding the hill, the rick, the plantation, the path, and the rooks going round and round him in amazing circular race. Sir, only meant that there was a good crop in the ground. I saw him sow it, and the rooks could have a little bit for dinner, and you wouldn't miss it, sir. And Mr. Phillotson said I was to be kind to him. Oh, oh, oh!" This truthful explanation seemed to exasperate the farmer even more than if Jude had stoutly denied saying anything at all, and he still smacked the whirling urchin, the clacks of the instrument continuing to resound all across the field, and as far as the ears of distant workers, who gathered thereupon that Jude was pursuing his business of clacking with great assiduity. And echoing from the brand-new church tower just behind the mist, towards the building of which structure the farmer had largely subscribed to testify his love for God and man. Presently Troughton grew tired of his punitive task, and depositing the quivering boy on his legs, took a 6 pence from his pocket and gave it him in payment for his day's work, telling him to go home and never let him see him in one of those fields again. Jude leaped out of an arm's reach and walked along the trackway weeping, not from the pain, though that was keen enough, not from the perception of the flaw in the terrestrial scheme, by which what was good for God's birds was bad for God's gardener, but with the awful sense that he had wholly disgraced himself before he had been a year in the parish, and hence might be a burden to his great-aunt for life. With this shadow on his mind, he did not care to show himself in the village, and went homeward by a roundabout track behind a high hedge and across a pasture. Here he beheld scores of coupled earthworms lying half their length on the surface on the damp ground, as they always did in such weather at that time of the year. It was impossible to advance in regular steps without crushing some of them at each tread. Though Farmer Troughton had just hurt him, he was a boy who could not himself bear to hurt anything. He had never brought home a nest of young birds without lying awake in misery half the night after, and often reinstating them and the nest in their original place the next morning. He could
Now, guys, at the beginning, I want to ask you, do you hear the voice clearly? Is the voice clear when you hear it?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Now, we will try to comment on this quotation. Who is the speaker here? Who is the speaker?
The writer,
The writer. Who is the addressee?
audience, or
The audience,
readers.
or you can say the reader. Here, not the audience.
Readers, yes.
Yes.
Readers, yes.
The readers. Okay. What is the occasion? When and where?
At the time of harvest.
In the field, after Jude was banished by Farmer Troughton. Okay.
Yes.
What is the importance here?
Importance what?
What is the significance of this quotation? What is the importance of this quotation?
Maybe about his exhibitions
It refers or it introduces us to the new sides of Jude's character. He doesn't make any harm to anything, neither to
Yes.
birds nor
Yes.
to any
Yes.
creatures. So this is kind
Yes.
of introduction to new sides to the characters of Jude. Okay. So
Yes.
in other words, we can say here we have the reference to the theme of a humanity. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Be a human, being a good to nature and to creatures. Let's go on.
There to see trees
Yes.
cut down or lopped, from the fancy that it hurt them. And late pruning, when the sap was up and the tree bled profusely, had been a positive grief to him in his infancy. This weakness of character, as it may be called, suggested that he was the sort of man who was born to ache a good deal before the fall of the curtain upon his unnecessary life should signify that all was well with him again. He carefully picked his way on tiptoe among the earthworms, without killing a single one.
So the author refers or foreshadows that this man lives to suffer. He will suffer a lot. Okay.
On entering the cottage, he found his aunt selling a penny loaf to a little girl, and when the customer was gone, she said, "Well, how do you come to be back here in the middle of the morning like this?" I'm turned away. What? Mr. Troutham have turned me away because I let the rooks have a few peckings of corn, and there's my wages, the last I shall ever have. He threw the sixpence tragically on the table. Ah, said his aunt, suspending her breath, and she opened upon him a lecture on how she would now have him all the spring upon her hands doing nothing. If you can't skeer birds, what can you do? There, don't you look so deedy. Farmer Troutham is not so much better than myself, come to that. But 'tis as Job said, now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. His father was my father's journeyman anyhow, and I must have been a fool to let he go to work for him, which I shouldn't have done, but to keep ye out of mischief.
Here, who is the speaker? Mrs. Fowley. Who is the addressee? Jude Fowley. What is the occasion? After Jude was turned away, fired from his job. What is the idea here? Here we have some kind of reference to the class distinction. She mentioned that in the previous days or in the past, Mr. Trutham's father was her father's journey was a worker in or at her father's property. Okay, so here there is the importance of this quotation, that there is a reference to the theme of class distinction, and even we have reference to the poverty that people suffer and the hardship of work. Do you have any
Yes.
question? Let's go on.
More angry with Jude for demeaning her by coming there than for a dereliction of duty, she rated him primarily from that point of view, and only secondarily from a moral one. Not that you should have let the birds eat what Farmer Troutham planted. Of course you was wrong in that, Jude. Jude, why didn't you go off with that schoolmaster of thine to Christminster or somewhere? But oh no, poor ornery child, there never was any sprawl on thy side of the family, and never will be. Where is this beautiful city, Aunt? This place where Mr. Phillotson has gone to? Asked the boy after meditating in silence. Lord, you...
Even when there is reference that poor people are not allowed to go to Christminster to study, here we have a class distinction, that even the education only for the aristocratic and the high class people. Okay, and here we have some kind of the raising action, directing the little child Jude to go to follow his master, to go to Christminster, and now he is building his dreams.
Want to know where the city of Christminster is? Near a score of miles from here. It is a place much too good for you ever to have much to do with, poor boy, I'm a-thinking. And will Mr. Phillotson always be there? How can I tell? Could I go to see him? Lord, no. He didn't grow up hereabout, or you wouldn't ask such as that. We've never had anything to do with folk in Christminster, nor folk in Christminster with we. Jude went out, and feeling more than ever his existence to be an undemanded one, he lay down upon his back on a heap of litter near the pigsty. The fog had by this time become more translucent, and the position of the sun could be seen through it. He pulled his straw hat over his face, and peered through the interstices of the plating at the bright whiteness, vaguely reflecting. Growing up brought responsibilities, he found. Events did not rhyme quite as he had thought. Nature's logic was too horrid for him to care for. That mercy towards one set of creatures was cruelty towards another thickened his sense of harmony. As you got older and felt yourself to be at the center of your time and not at a point in its circumference, as you had felt when you were little, you were seized with a sort of shuddering, he perceived. All around you there seemed to be something glaring, garish, rattling, and the noises and glares hit upon the little cell called your life and shook it and warped it. If he could only prevent himself growing up, he did not want to be a man. Then, like the natural boy, he forgot his despondency and sprang up. During the remainder of the morning he helped his aunt, and in the afternoon, when there was nothing more to be done, he went into the village. Here he asked a man whereabouts Christminster lay. Christminster? Oh, well, out there yonder, though I've never been there. Not I. I've never had any business at such a place.